So regulation in a global context. Occasionally governments work together to establish rules that are universal among a variety of countries. So this is international regulatory agreements and cooperation. Occasionally they just negotiate among themselves, and sometimes they do under alliances or under agreements, such as using the United Nations to discuss mutual agreements. There are several trade associations. So for example, there's a trade association between the United States, Mexico, and Canada called NAFTA, which is the North America Free Trade Agreement, which establishes rules and regulations for businesses that are using suppliers or supplying to any of those three countries, and how they might work together to help facilitate business. An international cooperation example is also the EU, or the European Union. So before the European Union was founded, anytime you wanted to go to another country in Europe, you had to change currency. There was no universal currency all across Europe. Each country had their own currency. There was a lot of currency translation. And as a way to both facilitate travel, but also to facilitate trade, all of these countries came together and said, what if we had a universal monetary unit? What if we came together as countries and agreed to just have one single monetary unit, the euro, versus each of us having our own, and making it more difficult for trade among countries and travel and purchases. And so that was a collaborative agreement to help boost business in all of those countries. They also have established measures to make it easier for people to work in nearby countries versus the country that they live in. So there's a lot of provisions around that European Union agreement that really boosted businesses and helped make it significantly easier to trade across those borders. So there are a lot of different contracts like this that exist. Okay. As we move from chapter 7 into chapter 8, chapter 7 just really kind of gave an broad review of all of the different ways that government policy can impact businesses, the types of government policies. Chapter 8 focuses a little bit more on what is businesses' roles in government. So how do businesses get involved in the government process and in controlling regulation? Okay, and one is businesses as a political participant. So we already talked where I was saying about corporations in our very first week when we were looking at different entities. In the United States, a corporation is considered a person. And with that personhood comes the ability and the right to sue. Also becomes the ability and the right to donate to political campaigns. Okay? But there is an argument about whether or not businesses, especially corporations, should be allowed to participate in the political process. And some of that argument really comes from the amount of influence. Okay, so we can say that all people should be able to participate equally in the political process. It's a democracy. We all get to vote. We all have the right to monetarily contribute to any campaign, but maybe I'm only able to give $1,000 to a political campaign, and maybe that $1,000 doesn't really hold much weight, is I'm trying to influence that my candidate gets elected, or I'm trying to influence a certain regulation, versus a company like Amazon or Google or Facebook that can give millions of dollars to campaigns and to certain causes. And so that's where this argument comes in about justice or fairness, is really about size. Is when we're a very large corporation, is it fair that they can use their money and their access to more significant amounts of money to really sway government regulation in their favor? Okay, why businesses should be involved? We are a democracy, a government of many, and that is one of our founding principles. So really that government by the people, of the people, is that we should all be involved very highly in our government. We should all be researching and taking place. We should vote in every possible election that we have, because we have that right and the ability. Okay. Other reasons is that businesses are vital stakeholders of the government. They're part of the economic structure. They determine what kind of products and services we have available within our country. They provide taxes. Sometimes they even provide infrastructure. There are businesses that will actually build highways and roads to give access to a new building or something. And so they are very beneficial. They give jobs, which also helps boost the economy. Okay. Then the arguments, why shouldn't they be involved? Too big, too powerful, too much money. It's not fair. Okay. How can I compete against the amount of money that Amazon has to influence government officials? Okay. Here, this business is too selfish to care about the common good. Of course, we've talked about a lot of businesses that do care very much about the common good. But the problem is that there are a number of businesses that, unless they are forced to, do not do things for the benefit of the public. They do things for the benefit of profit. Okay. We also have business risks as credibility by engaging in partisan politics, especially in the United States right now, where we are an extremely politically divided country. If we had gone back to probably before the mid-2000s, we were much more partisan. So I can remember that there was a lot less volatility, there was a lot less division, there was much, much more collaboration between the two parties, much less finger pointing, and that is no longer happening. And in fact, every year the polarity increases and gets worse and worse. And as we polarize that, if businesses get involved, they risk being caught up in that polarization. And then they risk the losing customers who feel one way or the other. So, if you have certain beliefs and values and political beliefs and values, you might not be interested in giving business to a company who is very loudly spouting the exact opposite of what you believe in, or is maybe not even saying anything, but they're giving dollars to help promote things that seem very anti what their outward messaging is. Okay, so we look for what is our political strategy. Okay, so how do we as an organization work with the government or even use the power that we have to obtain advantages in today's marketplace? So we can do a lot of different things. One, we might want to further our economic survival or growth. So we're looking for ways to expand, and we might look where there's political favor for us or economic advantages. For example, Iowa State has economic the state of Iowa, not Iowa State, the state of Iowa has economic incentives where if a new business comes in and builds a structure in the state, they can get 5 years without any taxes. So they don't pay property taxes, they don't pay income taxes, they get 5 years of tax breaks. Another example, the Amazon warehouse in Cedar Falls. They paid $1 for the land there. And they have 5 years of no tax benefits. That was something done to bring business in, to bring jobs in, to get them to establish and show that it was a good place for it to compete. And the city of Cedar Falls is like, we can take 5 years without property taxes from this one business because over the long term that they're there, we're going to make so much property tax income from them. Okay. But how do corporations decide when and where to get involved in political events? Okay, so different ways that they can get involved. So one is information. Okay, so we try to provide policymakers with information to influence their actions. We give them information about our businesses. We give them information about industry. We talk to them about benefits, the cost and benefits of certain regulation, whether we're in favor or against. We might, things like, one example would be private schools. So private schools in Iowa have the advantage to get the Iowa Tuition Grant, which is a scholarship that is provided to Iowa students to try to help balance the cost between private colleges and state colleges. The state of Iowa was actually looking to end the Iowa Tuition Grant program a couple of years ago, and what colleges did was they took students to the Capitol to tell their stories, to tell how did the Iowa Tuition Grant benefit me and my access to education, where am I from, how does it benefit me as an Iowan, and that kind of stuff. And it worked. Instead of actually ending the Iowa tuition grants like they said they were wanting to do, they actually increased the funding to the Iowa tuition grants. So this information that students provided showed them that there was really good benefit to the state of Iowa by providing that. Okay, financial incentive strategy. We pay money. Okay, we give money to causes that we believe in. We donate to campaigns in hopes that by donating to those campaigns, those policymakers are going to vote for the things that we want them to vote for. Constituent building. So we ask for support, we campaign, we create commercials, maybe we create flyers, but we try to encourage other people that are working with us to also influence government policymakers, to write them letters, to call them, to share their stories. It's part of that information strategy, but where it's not just us sharing the information, we're going out and we're asking others to join us in that. Okay, different ways that we can do this and influence the government. With information strategy, we also have lobbying. Okay, and we're going to look at each one of these individually. Okay, so lobbying is direct contact with a government official. There's a wide variety of ways that lobbying can happen. It can happen when we just want to talk about a single cause, such as the Iowa tuition grant example that I gave. That is a form of lobbying. We bring students in, we share information, we're telling them why we want them to vote a certain way. Okay. The other way that institutions can lobby is that they can have full-time people that's the only thing that they do. They live in Washington, D.C., and their entire job is to look at what regulations are being talked about and to then go in and talk to members of Congress about why they are for or against these various things. Very large corporations have very large lobbying presence. Okay, and it's not just corporations. There can be other kinds of entities too. We can have unions, maybe lobbying for better safety protections or higher minimum wages. You can have different groups like insurance companies, or actually they lobby against universal health care, because if we had universal health care, we wouldn't need all of these insurance companies. Lobbying for different kind of policies and benefits that go for them. Okay. The revolving door that this is talking about is when businesses hire former government officials as lobbyists and political advisors. So say someone was a representative, then when they decide not to be a representative anymore, you might bring them in as a consultant to say, hey, use your experience as a representative to tell me how to navigate this better, to get the kind of information that I want to get in front of Congress people and convince them to vote for or against certain kind of legislative practices. Okay, so we'll talk about these activities as we can in the next video.